Chosen one, stop chasing it. Right now, while you're watching this, there is something you are chasing. Maybe it's a person who has been giving you mixed signals for months. Maybe it's a conversation you keep reopening that God may already be asking you to release. Maybe you've been checking their profile again, not because you want to, but because something inside you cannot stop. Maybe you've been praying the same prayer for so long that the prayer itself no longer sounds like faith. It sounds like begging. It sounds like panic wearing spiritual language. You've sent one more message when you should have waited. You've looked for one more sign when you already knew the answer. You've tried to prove your value to someone who has been benefiting from keeping you uncertain. You've compared your timeline to everyone around you and felt something sink in your chest. That quiet, familiar fear that everyone is moving forward while you are still standing in the same place, holding the same prayers, hoping for the same thing. And somewhere along the way, you told yourself, if I stop chasing, I'll lose it. You convinced yourself that your persistence is faith, that your monitoring is discernment, that the anxiety you feel every time they go quiet is a spiritual signal to hold on tighter, that if you just send one more message, wait one more week, find one more confirmation, something will finally shift. But what if the chase itself is the problem? What if what you've been calling persistence is being driven not by faith, but by fear? Fear of being forgotten, fear of aging out of something, fear of being left behind while the world moves on, fear that nothing better is coming, fear that if you don't make something happen, nothing will happen. That is what this message is about. Not about telling you to simply wait and do nothing. Not about handing you another vague reminder that God's timing is perfect, but about something far more specific. The difference between faith that moves and fear that chases, and what God is actually asking you to do instead. If this is already landing on something you've been carrying, take a second right now to like this video and subscribe if you haven't yet, because what comes next may completely reframe the way you see this entire season of your life. Now, before we go further, because what you're about to hear may shift something real, I need to tell you about something I built for exactly this moment. Maybe you've already prayed, already waited, already tried, already been disappointed. And maybe you've reached the point where you genuinely don't know whether you're supposed to act, keep fighting, or finally let go. That confusion, that exhaustion, is exactly where so many chosen ones lose themselves. Because stopping the chase doesn't mean standing still. It means learning to move in the right direction. That's why I created the Total Transformation of the Chosen One. 5 modules, a practical 30-day plan, 50 declarations, 2 exclusive bonuses, all delivered as a PDF directly to your email. Not to give you more information to carry, but to hand you a real structure, to recover your peace, sharpen your discernment, rebuild your discipline, and turn this waiting season into actual preparation for what God has already placed in front of you. Because someone exhausted from chasing signs, people, and outcomes doesn't need more inspiration. They need direction. This material was designed to give you exactly that. You'll find the link in the first pinned comment below. If you know it's time to stop chasing what you cannot control and start building what God has already placed in your hands, get your copy while access is still available. Now let's go deeper. You may believe you're chasing a person, a relationship, an opportunity, an answer from someone who keeps going silent. But sometimes, and this requires real honesty, what you are actually chasing is relief. Relief from the uncertainty. Relief from the silence. Relief from the fear that this might be it. That this might be the last one. That this window is closing and no other one will open. And when fear is the engine, everything begins to sound spiritual. I just need one more confirmation. Maybe I'm supposed to fight harder for this. Maybe the distance is a test of my faith. Maybe this sign is God telling me not to let go. Maybe if I pray with more intensity, something will finally break. But chosen one, persistence and panic are not the same thing. Faith and obsession are not the same thing. Obedience and desperation are not the same thing. And one of the most painful truths about chasing from fear is that even when it appears to work, even when you hold on long enough to get a response, a moment, a temporary closeness, you end up in something that costs you far more than you expected. Because what you caught required you to make yourself smaller to keep it. It required you to lower your standards, to explain your worth constantly, to accept inconsistency and call it complexity, to give grace that was never extended back to you, to hold on to crumbs and convince yourself they were a meal. And the chase has cost you things you may not have fully counted yet. It has cost you peace, the quiet that comes from knowing where you stand and where you are going. That peace has been replaced by constant analysis, reading every delay, every word, every silence, trying to determine your emotional footing based on someone else's behavior. It has cost you dignity, not because you are less, but because the posture of convincing, of proving, of trying to make someone choose you who has not chosen to, eventually begins to shape how you see yourself. It has cost you discernment. When you are chasing, your prayers stop being a conversation and start being a negotiation. You stop asking God what He wants from you and start asking Him to give you one specific thing. And slowly the ability to hear clearly begins to fade. It has cost you time, not only in days and months, but in the creative energy, the mental bandwidth, the emotional capacity that could have been building something real. And this doesn't apply only to relationships. Some of you are chasing validation from a family member who has shown repeatedly that they are not able to give what you need. Some are chasing recognition on a platform that has returned nothing but silence. Some are chasing a door that has been closed for years, still knocking, still waiting, still wondering why it doesn't open, while refusing to turn around and look at what's behind them. The object changes. The cost is always the same. And here is what may be the most uncomfortable part of this. Some of what you are chasing, God never told you to chase. Some of it He asked you to release. You felt it in a quiet moment. You sensed it in prayer. You knew it. But releasing it felt too much like losing it. So you went back. David had already been anointed king. The promise was real, confirmed, spoken over his life by a prophet of God. And yet, when the moment came, when Saul was vulnerable, when David could have taken matters into his own hands and forced the fulfillment of everything he had been promised, he refused, not because he didn't want it, not because the waiting wasn't painful, but because he had developed the spiritual maturity to understand that the promise was never his to produce. His role was to remain faithful to the process, not to take the throne by his own hands. David had the promise. David had but he refused to manufacture the fulfillment. That distinction between carrying a promise in faith and forcing an outcome through fear is one of the most important things God may be asking you to understand right now. Think about Abraham and Sarah. God had spoken clearly, a son, an heir, a future that was beyond anything their circumstances could produce. But the silence stretched long. The years continued. The waiting became heavier than they could hold. And so they found a solution, one that seemed reasonable, even compassionate, but was built on anxiety rather than obedience. The child born from the chase was not the child of the promise. Sometimes the greatest danger isn't losing what God promised. It's creating something out of panic because you're terrified the promise is taking too long. And what you build from that place, even with sincere intentions, can produce complications that take years to untangle. There is also Ruth. She had lost everything, her husband gone, her world restructured by grief, and the most natural response, the one others around her chose, was to return, to chase the familiar, to grasp at whatever fragment of a former life remained. But Ruth moved forward, into an unfamiliar land, into a field she didn't own, into a harvest she had no guarantee of. She did not chase a relationship. She did not position herself around Boaz or engineer a moment. She was faithful to what was in front of her, honoring Naomi, working in the field, maintaining her character in every unseen, unappreciated moment. And the relationship that changed her life found her while she was present in her purpose. She didn't manufacture it. She didn't monitor it. She walked her assignment, and what was meant for her arrived. Now I want to address something directly, because there is a version of this message that can be misread, and I'm not going to let you leave with a misunderstanding. Someone watching this is thinking, so I just do nothing. I pretend I don't have desires. I ignore the grief and act like the waiting isn't real. No, that is not what surrender means. Surrender is not passivity. Waiting is not inactivity. Not chasing does not mean not moving. What God is redirecting is not your energy. It's the target of your energy. He is asking you to stop chasing the outcome and start walking the assignment. And those are not the same movement. While you've been spending your strength trying to manage something you cannot control, there is a life in your hands that has been waiting for your attention. There is a project that has been sitting unfinished, a calling you've been postponing, a body that needs your care, a prayer life that has slowly been replaced by anxiety over one person, one answer, one outcome, finances that need to be faced, conversations that need to end, boundaries that need to be built, skills that were supposed to be developed, creative work that has gone untouched, because every available unit of your mental energy is being consumed by something you were never meant to control. The question needs to change. Not how do I make this happen, but what has God already placed in my hands that I have been neglecting while obsessing over what hasn't arrived? That shift is not small. That shift is everything. And if you are someone carrying the specific weight of time, someone who is 40, 50, 60 or beyond, I need you to stay right here. Maybe certain windows feel different now. Maybe a specific hope, a relationship, a family, a season you once imagined looks different today than it did years ago. Maybe the people around you have stopped asking about certain things, which somehow makes the grief quieter but heavier. I will not offer you a cheap, "it's never too late" that dismisses what you have genuinely lived. Some chapters do close, some timelines do shift, some things did not unfold the way you imagined, and naming that honestly is not a failure of faith, it is integrity. But here is what I need you to hear. A chapter can close without your purpose closing with it. God does not look at your age and recalculate your value. He does not look at what didn't happen and decide you have nothing left to offer or receive. The life in your hands right now, with every year, every scar, every lesson it carries, still holds weight, still holds direction, still holds meaning. Do not sacrifice the life that is still in your hands because you are grieving the life that didn't happen the way you imagined. The grief is real. You are allowed to feel it. But do not let it become the lens through which you filter everything that remains, because what remains is not a consolation prize. What remains is still a calling. Before we move into what comes next, I want to give you something practical. A moment to stop and actually look at what you've been holding. Ask yourself these questions honestly. Does this connection require you to constantly convince them of your worth? Do you lose your peace every single time they become distant? Not occasionally, but every time? Are you doing all of the emotional labor while they receive all of the benefit? Have you been lowering your standards not because God asked you to extend grace, but because you are afraid no one else will come? Are you calling the anxiety you feel around this person chemistry? Are you calling your obsession discernment? Are you treating breadcrumbs like confirmation? Are you spending hours trying to decode mixed signals instead of trusting what you already know? Are you becoming a smaller version of yourself just to make someone comfortable enough to stay? Are you asking God to preserve something that is actively destroying your peace? Those are not accusatory questions. They are diagnostic ones, because there is a difference between something being hard and something being wrong for you. There is a difference between a season that requires patience and a situation that requires release. There is a difference between trusting God through difficulty and using spiritual language to avoid obeying what you already sense. What comes from God may require courage. It may require work. It may require real patience and real sacrifice. But there is a difference between something that stretches you and something that diminishes you. Difficulty and self-destruction are not the same thing. A covenant and a cycle are not the same thing. Holding on in faith and holding on in fear are not the same thing, even when they look identical from the outside. And the way you know the difference is this: when you are walking in genuine faith, releasing the outcome doesn't feel like death. It feels like surrender. It feels like weight leaving your chest. It feels like finally exhaling after holding your breath for a very long time. But when you are chasing from fear, the idea of releasing it feels catastrophic, because the chase is not about the person or the outcome anymore. It's about managing the terror of uncertainty. And no amount of prayer, signs, or confirmations will satisfy that terror, because fear is never satisfied. You will always need one more sign, one more message, one more reason to hold on. One more reason to believe that this time something will finally shift. That is not a faith issue. That is a healing issue, and God is not asking you to pray harder around it. He's asking you to walk through it. Now I want to stop here for a second, because we're at a point in this message where something may be shifting for you. If this is speaking to what you've been carrying, pause for one moment and leave "I will not chase" in the comments, not as a number, not as a superstition. As a real decision you are making right now, that fear no longer gets to determine your movement. I'll say more about that at the end. And if you haven't grabbed the total transformation of the chosen one yet, the link is in the first pinned comment below. Because this next part of the message, about what to actually do now, is exactly what that material was built to walk you through step by step over 30 days. Go get your copy, then keep watching. There is a particular form of chasing that almost no one talks about. It doesn't look like checking someone's profile. It doesn't look like sending another message. It looks like staying. Staying in something half-formed because leaving feels like giving up on what God promised. Staying in an almost relationship because you've already invested so much that walking away feels like losing. Staying in a pattern that has repeated itself for years because you've convinced yourself that if you just pray through it one more time, something will finally be different. Chosen one, not every door that keeps closing is a test of your faith. Some of them are directions. Some of them are God saying, "Not this, not here, not them. Stop putting your shoulder against this door and turn around." Because what is actually for you is not hiding behind a door that requires you to break yourself to open it. The version of you that God is preparing for what is ahead does not need to be smaller. It does not need to be more desperate. It does not need to have lowered its standards until they are unrecognizable. That version of you is built through obedience to the daily assignment, through the quiet work of preparation that happens when no one is watching and nothing has arrived yet. Some of you have been so focused on one specific outcome that you have neglected the preparation for it. You've been praying for the relationship, but not doing the healing work that would allow you to sustain one. You've been asking for the opportunity, but not developing the discipline that would allow you to steward it. You've been asking God to open doors while refusing to clean up the rooms those doors lead into. And God, in His mercy, is saying, "Not yet." Not because you are disqualified, but because what is coming requires more than you currently have to offer. And He is using this season, this uncomfortable, uncertain, stretching season, to build what the next chapter will need. So here is what the release actually looks like. Release the person you've been trying to convince, not with bitterness, not with a closing statement designed to make them respond, but with a genuine decision that your peace is no longer negotiable. Release the timeline you've been comparing against everyone else's. Someone else's marriage in their 20s says nothing about what God is building in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. You are not behind. You are on a different path. And a different path is not a slower path. It is simply a different one. Release the door you keep reopening. You know the one. The one you've closed and returned to more times than you can count. The one that every time it opens slightly, just enough to give you hope, closes again and leaves you more depleted than before. Leave it closed, and leave the decision with God. Release the need to know exactly when, not because the desire for clarity is wrong, but because waiting for certainty before you move has become another form of paralysis. You do not need to know when, you need to know what, and what is already in front of you. Release the belief that surrender is the same as losing. This may be the hardest one, because in a culture that rewards relentlessness, stopping the chase can feel like defeat. It can feel like giving up, like having no faith, like deciding to settle for less. But surrender, when it is real, is not the absence of desire. It is the decision to trust the one who holds what you desire more than you trust your own ability to produce it. But do not release your discipline. Do not release the standards you have spent years learning you deserve. Do not release the assignment God has placed clearly in your hands. Do not release your faith. Do not release your healing process. Do not release the work that needs to be done. Do not release the boundaries that are keeping you sane and whole. Do not release the calling that has been quietly waiting for your full attention. The release is surgical. It is specific. You are releasing the outcome you cannot control, not the obedience you are called to sustain. And when the chasing stops, something remarkable begins to happen. The mental space that was consumed by monitoring, analyzing, and managing one unresolved situation begins to return. And in that space, you start to see your actual life again. The creative work that's been sitting untouched. The relationship with God that has slowly been replaced by anxiety prayers over one specific thing. The friendships that have been neglected. The physical body that has been running on stress. The skills that could be sharpened. The calling that has been waiting patiently while you were occupied with something else entirely. This is what God has been trying to redirect you toward, not to punish you with the silence, not to withhold what you want as discipline, but because your assignment, the real one, the one that carries weight and purpose and lasting fruit, cannot be built while your hands are full of something you were never meant to hold on to this long. Tomorrow morning, not some abstract future day, but tomorrow. Do not wake up looking for another sign. Wake up looking for an instruction. Look at the project that has been sitting in your drafts for 3 months, the application you've been postponing, the boundary you know you need to set but haven't, the room in your home that reflects the disorder you've been tolerating internally, the debt that needs a real plan, the body that has been asking for your attention, the skill that is supposed to be developed, the prayer life that needs to be rebuilt from a place of conversation instead of negotiation, the creative work that has been waiting for your full presence, the calling you have been ignoring while monitoring somebody else's behavior. Those things, those right there, that is where your energy belongs. Not because the desires of your heart don't matter, they do, but because what is meant for you does not need a depleted, distracted, desperate version of you chasing it. It needs a prepared version of you, grounded, focused, walking in purpose, capable of receiving it and carrying it well. God is not asking you to stop wanting. He is asking you to stop letting what you want determine whether you are able to function, be present, and move forward. He is asking you to want it and still obey what is clear today, to feel the longingest and still build what is in your hands, to trust that what is genuinely for you will not require you to compromise everything that makes you who you are. What is for you will recognize you. Not a weakened version of you that chased and broke itself trying to force an outcome. The real you, the one who walks the assignment, does the work, keeps the standards, rebuilds the discipline, and moves forward in faith, even when nothing is confirmed yet. That is the chosen one who is ready for what comes next. So if you're walking away from this video with one thing, let it be this. You are not stopping the chase because you're giving up. You are stopping the chase because you finally understand that fear was driving it. And fear is not a foundation. Faith is. And faith does not chase. Faith walks, faith prepares, faith builds, faith trusts, faith moves, but in the direction of the assignment, not the direction of the anxiety. You do not need one more sign. You need one clear step. Take it. If this message spoke to something real in you, drop "I will not chase" in the comments right now. Not as a ritual, as a decision, a declaration that the version of you who let fear set the pace is done. That from today, you move from your assignment, not from your anxiety. And if this video helped you, please like it before you leave and share it with another chosen one who needs to hear this today. Subscribing takes 1 second and means the next message gets to find you. The video on your screen right now is the next one you should watch. It goes deeper into exactly where this message left you. Don't close out, keep going. You are not behind, you are being prepared. And what is truly for you does not need a chasing version of you to hold on to it. It needs the real one. Walk your assignment.